Hey everyone, welcome to Thanksgiving week and the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO Scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 42 of season 2023. Yes, this is Thanksgiving week, and I am working full throttle on the layout last week, and then hopefully this coming week. I always love Thanksgiving. Best time of the year for me, and looking forward to getting a lot of work done yet on the layout. You can see what I've done this week. Share a little bit about what we did this week. First of all, though, make sure you like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet. Comment, share with as many people as you can, and become a member if you want to, and so on. But this is what this area looked like before I started this week. I got quite a bit done. There's a lot of steps in getting this all done. Here you can kind of see where I was wanting to get to. Basically wanted to get all this area covered up with plaster. So there you have some strips of cardboard I had ready for the basic form. I have my glue gun that I put on low. I always use low because I hate to burn my fingers when it's on high. Have a few tubes, barely enough. I did in fact get it all done with what I had there. My extension cord with a little clamp there to keep it in place. And here you can see I did the vertical strips of cardboard. Basically wanted to get done up to the engine facilities there. So first thing I did was these vertical strips. Use the glue gun. Now these strips don't go all the way through. They're just short strips, and then on both sides of where the track is. I just put one piece of cardboard on the little space between the roadbed for the track and the road, the gravel road that's going to go along with it. There you can kind of see the very last strips. Now I have the backdrop up already, so I kind of wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up. I did put a piece of hardboard behind it, so I had something to glue to. I didn't want to really glue the strips to the backdrop itself. It's only paper, so I want to kind of protect that. So I put some hardboard behind it, glued the cardboard to that. Here you can see I have now the horizontal strips going through. The webbing was pretty close together since the spaces were not very big. In a lot of places it was just a strip of cardboard in there. Here you can see it again, basically just a strip of cardboard. So on both sides of the track roadbed is just one long strip of cardboard. I did not put some rosin paper on here because I figured the webbing was so close together it was not going to be needed. I just simply put in the cardboard strips as quickly as I could and try to fill it up as much as I could. Wanted to get it nice and tight and yet not be so time consuming. Now I wanted to, before I started doing some plaster work on here, I wanted to protect it. I kind of tried to think of what's a good way of making sure that none of the plaster gets on the backdrop. So I came up with this idea of using an old playing card deck, a deck of old playing cards. We had a bunch of these laying around the house, and I don't think this one had a full 52 cards, so I went ahead and used it. Now there's a couple places where the cardboard was far enough away from the backdrop that the cards would just kind of fall through. So in those places I would fold a card and then use that card as pressure to make sure that it stayed in place. Now I have a different solution I'm going to use for here because it's just the flat plywood. I have a some styrene I'm going to put on there. But then behind the cards, then I put some legal size computer paper. So what I was thinking about, I really wanted to protect the backdrop from the plaster, from the paint, and then also from the water spray, especially with the scenery work. Because in order to get the scenery glue down, you spray it with some wet water first, and then you spray it with some diluted white glue. So a lot of spraying of water and glue, and I did not want to get that on the backdrop. Now, another way to do this is do the scenery and plaster and everything first, and then put the backdrop up behind it. But I've always found that to be hard to do. It always seemed to be hard to get the backdrop back behind the scenery that you built. So I decided to put the backdrop up first and then just find a way to protect it while I do the scenery work. Now here you can see I did paint all the track. Used a rust color for the track at an angle, and then railroad brown from on top, so that the railroad tie brown color was used for the ties. So all the ties came out to be railroad tie brown, and then there's enough overspray on the rails so that the rails are kind of a rusty railroad tie brown color, which I think turns out pretty realistic. And then I went ahead and put the plaster cloth on. I used 2 full rolls, 8-inch wide by 15 feet. And I put it on fairly thin, fairly thinly. I didn't really overlap it too much. I knew I was going to come back with some just regular plaster on top of this. So I wasn't too worried about getting it, so thick that it had to be this really hard shell. Just wanted enough to support the plaster that I was going to apply on top of it. See, there's some gaps there right now. And you can see the webbing underneath it a little bit. And as you can tell, I did tape off the track once I got it painted. I went ahead and taped it off. The playing card idea actually worked pretty good. I was pretty proud of myself for thinking of that. I thought about that for a long time, what I was going to put back there. The playing cards work well because it kind of follows it's not a straight, you can't just use something that's straight, so the cards can go up and down to follow the contour of the scenery. Now here you can see I painted the plaster gauze with a layer of paint of plaster. So you have cardboard strips, and then on top of the cardboard strips is the plaster gauze, and then I just use a paintbrush and usually put the plaster at a 50-50 ratio, 50% water, 50% plaster, which makes it pretty soupy, so it is pretty easy just to paint it on, although by the time you get to the bottom of the pail for the plaster, it gets pretty thick. So you have to kind of work quickly. Don't mix up too much of it. You can see I've already kind of worked on the scenery too, but definitely smooths things out. Then I use some Sonoran Desert paint, and then on top of that I put some fine turf foam grass from Woodland Scenics. I usually use yellow grass first, and then on top of the yellow grass I put some green, blended green, and then on top of the blended green I put some more yellow grass. So that's what you see here. Now I actually ran out of yellow grass. I was just at Lombard Hobbies. I'm bought some scenery materials, but I thought I had more yellow grass. I did not, so I'm going to have to go back to Lombard Hobbies and pick up some more yellow grass fine turf. But I did have some fine turf that I had mixed up a while ago that had both the green and the yellow, so I kind of used that. It actually worked out pretty good. All right, then the next layer I use is the coarse foam, so you can see a little bit, some clump foliage. Then also, once I took the playing cards off and so forth, everything was very well protected behind it, by the way. There was just a little bit stuck here and there. The paper was wet enough to where I could actually see through the paper and see the backdrop behind it. So I was kind of worried about that. But once I took the paper off, even though it was wet enough to see through, it was wet and was kind of sticking to the backdrop. But once I took it off, the water definitely stayed with the paper, did not really get on the backdrop. The backdrop stayed pretty much 100% dry. So I was very happy about that. So I definitely find this to be a little bit better than doing the scenery first and then trying to put the backdrop behind it. So the layers that are on here, just to review again, you have fine turf from Woodland Scenics, yellow grass, and blended fine turf. What's blended means it's kind of green and yellow together. And then the coarse turf on top of that, and then clump foliage on top of that of different colors. And then soak it with water and diluted white glue. And for the scenery, for the diluted white glue, it's pretty much, lots of water with not that much glue. The main thing about it is that it has to be able to flow through a spray. You can't just do a dropper, one drop at a time on the scenery. You have to kind of spray the glue on there, so it's got to be diluted enough so that it'll go through the sprayer. And I find it's like 5-to-1 ratio at least in order to get it to flow through the sprayer. And here I think I took off the tape. Now you can see there's still a lot of white plaster showing through, but it's close enough to the track. I knew it was going to be covered up with plaster, so I wasn't too worried. Not with plaster, with ballast, so I wasn't very worried about that. Really like the way this little cut came through. Here's the road is going to go across the tracks there, and it looks like a little cut there so that the gravel road can go by. And basically the way this kind of looks, and is that you have the gravel road right by the tracks, but then on the other side of the little hill there, which is up against the backdrop, then you have another road that goes by the houses. So the houses are in kind of a off in the distance, and at different places you can see bits of the road that are beyond the modeled scenery. Now here I have the fascia painted with the black. Definitely like the black. I also had a couple places where the hardboard was showing through where the plaster went a little bit lower than the backdrop, so I filled that in with some clump foliage here and there so that was hidden. There's a couple places where I just pushed the scenery down to there. You can't see a fence there, but there you can see a little bit of the road that's back. So I think the illusion's pretty good. By the way, the skirting got some plaster on it, so I put it in the wash, and it actually got washed out pretty good. So, and also you can see I put some trees in where the seams are, so things flow together a lot better. Kind of looks pretty cool the way the gravel road goes kind of up and down whereas the main line is a straight shot. That's kind of a good contrast. Here we have some ballast on. Now, along the edges, there's some of the paint showing through. So I went back and added some white glue to that, and then sprinkled some ground foam on that to kind of cover that up. But overall, it looks pretty good. One thing, I think I might put a little retaining wall. So there's an area right here by this turnout where it's so vertical, none of the ground foam. Here you can take a look at some of the repairs I need to do on the ballast. Here's some more areas where I need to go back and touch it up a little bit. When it was still, here's also some that needs to be removed. So when I get done, I remove the whatever gravel or ballast may be on the sides of the rails. I usually remove that with my fingernail and then vacuum it up. But sometimes when I vacuum it up, I vacuum up ballast that's not supposed to be vacuumed up too. So I just kind of, once it's all completely dry, I'll go back again and may have to add some more ballast here and there to even it all out a little bit, but you can kind of get the general idea. Now again, here's the part where I might put a retaining wall where it's between the drill track of the yard. Now here it's not too bad in the main line because you did get some ground foam on there, so it looks pretty good. But down closer to the turnout, here you can see another area I need to kind of touch up a little bit. I use Woodland Scenics fine gray ballast for the main line, and then a mixture of fine gray and fine brown. Pick those up at Lombard Hobbies. And I'm going to use the mixture for the yards. I already used it for UTLX, and I'm starting to use it here for this yard. Notice I put a truck and a vehicle there. There's that little SUV there. That's the SUV that Mark Bridgewater and Brian and I can't think of the other guy's name. I'm sorry, but the four of us went out there and watched the trains together, and we drove right along this gravel road that went along the main line, waiting and looking for trains. And two of us caught COVID while we were doing that. That was in June of 21. There you can see that little area that I made where it looks like it's unpainted. You can see I washed the skirting also. That plaster is gone. But the little area by the turnout that doesn't have any ground foam on it, that looks kind of vertical, I might put a retaining wall there. So it's pretty much done, but there are some touch up yet I want to do. Overall, I think it looks really nice. Pretty happy with the way this turned out. And then that fits in with the rest of the scenery that we've been working on up to this point. I do like the black fascia. I think that is a good color, or lack of color, I should say. Now, in the coming weeks, I'm also going to be working on the rest of this. Just going to kind of work my way around. I'm going to work on this area here up to about right here. So I'm going to do the throat here. These tracks, the main line, and the area around the engine house and the engine facility. So that's going to be, I'm going to do that next week. And then the week after that, so the week after Thanksgiving, I'm going to do them from there up to about right here. And then the week following, move the coffee mug. So in 2 weeks, I should be done up to here. And then the third week, I'm going to try to do up through this whole throat here. Not sure quite how far I'm going to get. So I'll be through 3 weeks, I'll be done to about this point. And then the fourth week, I'm going to work on the control point and probably up to about right here. So after 4 weeks, I should be done up to here. And then the fifth week, I'm going to go ahead and work all the way up to the end. So it's not a whole lot to ballast here on the fifth week, but I still need some work to do on the backdrop, and it's going to be difficult as far as it not being very reachable. I have to do a lot of long reaches. But in 5 weeks, I should be able to have all this area here done. I'm actually going to try and do it without any painting of the layout. I'm going to just cover it with ballast. So it's going to be, you know, the whole yard area is going to be completely ballasted. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the backdrop around the Evanston area is basically of the yard in Evanston. So it's actual pictures of the Evanston yard. And if you look at the pictures in that backdrop, there's not any vegetation. It's basically just all dirt. So I might paint it, but I won't be doing much, if any, ground foam on there. Here we'll see a couple of trains going through. This is just a local train here coming through. Again, there's the area that I'm going to be doing the retaining wall. Probably not here, but just to the right of here. Looks pretty good. The backdrop really blends in nicely. I think it all kind of fits together well. Trying to shoot these from eye level. Sometimes it's easy to kind of get the camera held a little bit lower, which looks cool, but then you see the underside of the upper level. So I'm trying to do this at eye level. So right now you can see the underside. If you can see the underside, that's a really short person. So this right here is probably 3 or 4 inches lower than my eye level. Maybe 3 inches below my eye level. I'm 6'2", so this would be a 5'9" person. This stack train looks pretty good going through here. So not bad for 1 week's worth of work. The rest of the area of Evanston won't be so much scenery work, but will be a lot more ballasting. So it's not really something I'm looking forward to a lot. Ballasting can be a little tedious after a while. Yeah, that area is definitely going to need a retaining wall of some sort. Right there. Well, that's where things stand as of today. Have a great week, everyone, and want to wish everybody a super Thanksgiving. Hope it's a lot of good times and good food with family and friends. Hope it's a very blessed event. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.